So everyone, welcome for this workshop that we are going to have with the second year Studio Benayger Source Studio Group, with our group with Aysan and me, Şebnem. And we are really happy to host Onur Yücegün and Dana Maringo from New Balance, in fact, to help us to develop a certain understanding on artificial intelligence and how we may just integrate these tools of artificial intelligence to our design processes, and perhaps for the second year, for the final visualization of your projects from different perspectives. So first of all, thank you, Onur and Dana, for being with us. This is really very valuable, and I will make a very brief introduction of who is Onur Yücegün and who is Dana Maringo. Onur is a computational designer, and he's also an instructor whose expertise mostly help him bring non-standard designs in different scales, like from skyscrapers to very minuscule 3D printed lattices into life. And Onur instituted the Computational Geometry Group at KPF, New York in 2006. His computational architecture work got published in Elements of Parametric Design. In 2009, he acted as one of the co-founders to develop the curriculum and start Istanbul Big University's undergraduate program in architecture, which Benay and I am also from. He taught at MIT, and he taught at different universities in Chile and acted as a mentor at numerous schools, and he held workshops around the globe. He trained as an architect. He was a PhD and a master's in design and computation, both earned at MIT. He is currently the director of computational design at New Balance, where he develops computational design workflows and futuristic concepts with a specific concentration on design for additive manufacturing. And thank you, Onur, for joining us. And I will have a brief introduction for Dana Maringo. Dana, so nice to meet you. And really, we are so happy to have you as a previous Penn State alumni, as far as I could learn from Onur too. And Dana is also an architect. She's working on computational design, and she is currently working on more innovative side of footwear at New Balance as Athletics in Boston. She's interested in creating meaning through computation while concentrating on 3D printed shoe design and additive manufacturing methods. Dana received a Bachelor of Architecture degree from the Pennsylvania State University in 2007 and subsequently practiced architecture for 8 years at various firms throughout Boston, including Manhattan Architects in Cambridge. She taught design at the Boston Architectural College and served as an Architecture for Humanity board member, and her work was chosen for the Boston Society of Architects Future of Design exhibition. Through design and computation, she helps to empower others on the path of their most challenging athletic pursuits. So thank you so much for both of you for joining us and just for this contribution for our studios here at Penn State. Thanks a lot. Benay, anything to add?
No, it's great to hear that we have a Penn State alumni also as one of the workshop leaders. So nice to meet you.
You too. Thanks.
Yeah, that's with it. I'll just take it from here. And I'm really happy that Dana is able to join me today. This is not the first time we are teaching with her. Actually, this is maybe 4th time. We did some international workshops, and because they coincided with the pandemic, it was mostly online. But again, I think the point is, we're going to make this workshop just show you how to use a tool in a really quick way, one of the emergent AI systems, to use it in an architectural manner. So that's very important. And I think you have people to, although we work for New Balance, right? So I've been there almost 7 years. Dana is getting very close to 10 years at New Balance now. So we are very seasoned already there, but also we are both architects, right? And Dana has a very kind of like long and strong track in architecture as well, including a building in Istanbul, Turkey, which is where I'm from. So, like small world. And then we're kind of like connecting today with you to help you a little bit, again, to show these tools. Just a brief introduction about the tools before I share anything. Probably you may have seen, some text to image tools, which are pretty much about, you write a description of something, an object or a place or whatever you want. And then you can give some details by using natural language, and these tools generate images for you. So there are examples, probably you have seen these articles or names like Midjourney, Dolly, Stable Diffusion, and so on. So today we're going to show Stable Diffusion. But we will also show, we wanted to do this very visual, right? So we just don't want to do it by using prompts or words or natural language. We want to do it by using images. So there's this new tool now, and it's accessible for free, which is great, right? So there are 2 reasons for us to pick this, which is called ControlNET. And this will enable you to both use your design ideation that's coming from your sketches, from any image that you want to use, right? And then you can also use prompts, words. So you can kind of like blend these two worlds of, let's say, creative explorations. So I see that as a big opportunity. And with that, actually, I'm going to kind of hand it to Dana first to show what like the range of things that we're going to look into. We will not dig deep into all, let's say, 10 options, 10 plus options, whatever they are. You're going to see it in a minute. But we will kind of like start, digging into a couple of them, which might be useful for your like architectural compositions and making some, first, let's say, for some abstract configurations and compositions, but then maybe make them more like render them in a more architectural manner. Okay. But we are going to show that by using not architecture, but some other examples. So we can pause here recording and we'll get back to recording again. Thanks for the reminder. That was pretty good. Okay, so we are going to go to this link. I'm going to send it in the chat, which is a ControlNET, which is the ControlNET Hugging Face interface. So Hugging Face is pretty much a service where you can run your AI models. Let me share my screen now. Okay. Let me know when you're able to see it. Can you see it now? My screen. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, I couldn't hear. That's great. The only problem is I can't see you now, so I want to see you.
Second years. I just sent the link also through email.
Just give me a second here. Okay, Zoom doesn't want to show the video. This is so... Okay. And do you know anything about this like bug that I can't see anyone now, like nobody at all.
Should you, like, maybe there's,
Okay.
share your screen
Yeah, I'll try it again.
on the right? You should choose how you want to see the participants. You can
Okay.
choose how you want to see the participants.
Advanced, let's say. No, it's not going to do it. Okay. Anyway, at least I can hear you. That's great that I can hear you. Okay, great. So this is the interface. If you go to this link, and you will see the tabs here. So the tabs at the top of this UI is very important. So we are going to use these tabs. Again, not all of them, but we're going to understand how they work. And then you can go back and use them depending, according to your needs. So the first three, Canny, Hue, and HED, are for edge detection. As I said, they find the edges of things and they regenerate depending on the prompt. And the prompts are pretty much put in here. So let's try one. And I'm going to start with a simple example that I did today. And I'm going to explain why I did that in a minute. But the way it works is we are on the page. Let's say we're on the first tab, which is Canny, just to understand how this how this algorithm works. I'm going to drag and drop my image here. And then I'm going to type something. So this is, you can type anything, right? So you can type pink elephants and see if it can generate pink elephants by using these things. But of course, our aim is more like creating a 2D abstract illustration, let's say, or composition is a better word, I think. And make sure that you are not doing any kind of like typo. And then I'm going to hit run. Once you hit run, you're going to see, I don't know if you can see the color on my screen because it's dark, but the rectangle on the right side, you're going to see a progress bar would be moving from left to right, and it's going to give you an approximate time for its the generation, duration for the image. So this takes time because you are using a free GPU. And if I scroll above, you're going to see here it says running on T4. T4 is an older NVIDIA card. So I'm not sure if this is using Google's resources as GPU or another GPU somewhere else, which means that there's some sort of like data, if you have a data concern, you shouldn't upload those things, right? So anything you are doing now might be visible for anyone. So just always keep that in your mind, okay? So we're still curious, it's taking time, I'm waiting, for this to happen, and let's see what comes out. But if you get a result, just shout out, just say, hey, I got something, so we can hear about that.
For that, is everyone on the website? Everyone? Okay.
And people can try this with us, simultaneously.
So do you want to send that image to them too, so they work on
Sure.
the same image maybe?
Of course, good idea. Yes, great. So let me go to chat here. So if it goes above the time limit, it means that it's taking more time. So you're kind of like being pushed in the queue. And now we're kind of like using it together. I don't know how big the GPU cluster is, so you may be taxing all together. But here we go, we got a result. So I'm gonna send this thing to you. The problem is I can't open the windows. Okay, here we go. Okay, I just sent it over the chat. Okay, you can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So what it did is it found the edges. It didn't do anything about the grayscale values, like darks and brights are not, it didn't detect anything about it. But then it got a little kind of like creative with the results, right? So it's kind of like producing this thing. The reason for it to take too much time is probably like the image might be, it's the highest image resolution. So the way to understand that is you can go to advanced options here, right below on the left side, and you can change the image resolution. Actually, you can only reduce it here, right? If it lets you, and it's only giving you two options, 256 or 512. So I'm gonna reduce mine just to keep it faster. You cannot increase the number of images. Actually, you can do as many images as you want, but you need the GPU, like the video card resources for that. And you need to run it locally. So we are using, again, like a free resource here. So it's just letting you do one. But let's try something else with that. I'm going to go back to my prompt. So I was saying 2D abstract composition. Instead of that, I'm going to say 2D abstract architectural plan. And don't forget that I'm still using Canny. So I didn't change an algorithm here. So I'm just going to say run. The only thing I changed was the resolution, which I, went back from 512 down to 256. Just hoping that, it's going to kind of like make it faster. Did anybody get anything with the first image? Benai?
I'm still running.
Oh, you're still running. Anybody in the class who managed to get something?
The results.
Nothing?
We are all in the queue.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, because we jumped on it all together. So that's again, I don't know like how big the GPU cluster for this is. So, but let me know when somebody gets something. So as you see, like if you open this and exploring on your own, you can get stuff, right? So it happens faster, usually in a minute or so. Now it's taking way more time. The alternative option is installing this locally, okay? Meaning you install the tool to your computer. Okay, so have a look at this. So what I did was I changed to the abstract architectural plan, and it tried to make an architectural plan, but keep it abstract and so on and so forth. So it came up with this not so good, resolution, let's say, result. I'm going to go into detail again in a minute, but let's go back to what I was saying about the local installation. I'm going to put this to the right, and on the left side, you're going to see much better results, okay? And I get those results super fast because I installed it to my laptop locally, okay? It's a little annoying to install this thing because, well, there are a couple of reasons. First, your laptop needs to have an NVIDIA GPU, okay? So if you have an NVIDIA video card, then you can run this locally. If not, if you don't have a GPU, it's not going to run. The second thing is the installation is a little, it's not like you click something and it installs it. You have to type a little bit like, command line prompts and so on. And the third thing is you have to download around like a 50 gigabytes of package to your computer to run this locally, okay? You don't have to do it, but as I was doing it for the second time, I prepared all the material, all the instruction for that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to record the video and upload it to my YouTube channel so you can see how to install this tool locally. And you can run it indefinitely, right? So that's the good part. What we're going to try now is instead of doing that, because these are the two things. What you see on the right side is the online version. What you see on the left side is the local version. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show stuff on the local one that you can take that know-how, you can take those images, prompts, and techniques and just apply it on the online version. Let's say after 2 a.m. in the morning, so not, there won't be any queues. So you will get better results. So while I'm jumping to the left side to the local one, let me show you a couple of things. So first of all, on the right side, you're going to see that it's the image at the top, the prompt is at the bottom. on the left side, actually, there is what happens is the prompt is at the top because there's the stable diffusion installation, and then there is the ControlNET installation underneath it, right? So, I mean, it's above it, but like visually, first you see stable diffusion, and then you see ControlNET here. If you see my cursor on the left side at bottom, you'll see ControlNET, which is, if I open this, you're going to see ControlNET environment. So then you put the image where you see that dark patch on the left side, but you have to write the prompt at the top. So what I can do is I can just take that prompt from left side, abstract to the composition chalk and colorful. So I'm giving, you know, this material, the medium, right, for it to paint to, and I'm just going to run the online one again on the right side. So it's going to take, again, it says 2 minutes now, so it takes so much time. And on the left side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the same algorithm, which is Canny. So on the left side, what you need to do is this. You go to ControlNET, open it, just click the button here. Let me zoom in a little bit. And then you say there's an enable button here, which is right here. You click enable. And from the preprocessor list, you pick Canny, because we are working with the Canny on the right side. And then there's another tab, which is model. This is very important, which I'm going to talk about again later. You have to pick the same named file. So which says here, control SD 1.5 Canny. So I just select that, okay? Great, so which means that I set the same environment locally, which I'm using online, all right? So the next thing I can do is, actually the resolution here is much higher because here it was set to 256 on the right side, if you remember, okay? On the left side, I'm setting it to 540 high and 960 wide. So it's a much bigger image than what we're going to get on the right side. And then the other perk here you have is you can create a batch count. So because the online version is only giving you the option to create one, here I can create as many as I want, depending on the hardware speed, my hardware speed. So for now, I'm going to stick with 4. And then I'm going to make this, I'm just changing the prompt from colorful to earthy colors. Okay. And I'm going to say, I need to drop the source image first. I'm going to go to my source image here. I'm going to drop it here. And again, it's Canny and Canny. I'm going to just check that out. My prompt is here. I want 4 images, and I'll say generate. On the right side, I got the same results. So if it is acting weird, the best practice is what you're getting here is a very, very low resolution image on the right side. The reason is because the server is so busy, it's not using GPUs to the full extent to generate something really high quality. So instead of that, it's doing a little bit of the job and then stopping it. But on the left side, again, locally, you are going to see that I'm already at 29% of 4 images, which are almost like 6 to 8 times higher resolution than the image on the right side. Okay, so just keep going with that. This might be a motivation to try the, the local version, but again, as I said, the online version works better when it's not bugged so much. So probably it has limited resources, and it's just kind of like stopping the diffusion process, which is what this is, early before it kind of like reaches to the end. Okay, so this should be almost done now. And again, I'm still using, we go back to this guy, the online version. I'm using the same, the first algorithm here. So let me explain as this is generating it. Okay, this is generating. So you would see that, of course, like here, actually the result is much better. And I'm trying to see, because it's using, the GPU resource I have here to the full extent to generate all these, abstract images. So one nice thing you're going to realize is as you explore more images, so it's almost reading all these as, three-dimensional entities with some sort of like ambient occlusion shade around it. It also creates these kind of like interesting moments, right? So like here, we don't know what there is. And there's a little bit of stain here, right? So on the right side. So these are all like these playful things that are going to keep appearing. But what you can do at this moment is you can kind of like start saving this, the images that you like into a folder, and then, go back to them and then, do any kind of like edits in those. So again, this is very kind of determined, right? Because I have a very intentional image here, which is, again, I think the intention is super, super clear. Sometimes maybe you won't have that kind of like clear intention. So that makes me jump to, maybe on the online version, we can jump to this scribble, which is quite interesting. So I'm back to the online version. I'm going to like refresh the page just in case, to clear the cache and so on. So what you do here is in Scribble, once you go to Scribble, you open, let me see. Actually, sorry, we need to go to Scribble Interactive because I want you to draw. So we're going to go to Scribble Interactive, which is the 5th tab from left. And then what you're going to see is there's a button here which says Open Drawing Canvas, right? So I just click that. And this is going to open a drawing canvas for you, okay, right here. So the cool thing here is that that is already a cursor. So if I click the mouse, it's going to draw something, but that is too thick. Like the diameter of that pen is really thick. So I'm going to kind of like make it thinner, and you can see that. And you can start, drawing things. And I'm just going to kind of like make it. I'm drawing with mouse, so it's pretty. It's going to be a little rough. Okay, wonderful. Coming from an architect, this looks good enough. And then the next thing is you are going to write a prompt again. So we can just say something like building blocks, birds eye view. I'm just making it up, okay? And I'll just run this. So now it says again like 88 seconds of 86 seconds now, of infinite waiting time. So we're going to wait for that and see what happens. I find this quite powerful because let's go to the local one as that's playing with it. And in my local system, I need to go to the processor, and I'm going to select Scribble here. And then here again from the models, I need to select Scribble as well. And I'm going to say here, create black canvas. So I'm pretty much doing the same thing. It's slightly different, compared to what's happening here, as you see. And then I can make my pen much thinner here. And I'm going to do the same thing just for the sake of comparison. My pen is kind of like thicker here, so I'll just do that. Wonderful, amazing. Okay, let's put one more block here. Okay, on the right side. So before we run this, okay, so things started emerging, right? So it got to use, create something more convincing, and you're going to see that it kind of knows what bird's eye view is. And it knows what blocks are. And because I said building, maybe it's trying to make a kind of like a paving pattern on the ground. Okay, so it's fun. You can also see, how it correlates to what you draw here. So, like this corner that I couldn't manage well is, also became something on the right side. So this is a nice thing about, maybe using these kind of tools. whatever you do, like by mistake, maybe becomes something creative. Again, if I go back to the local one, which is going to be fast, and I'm just going to make it a square of 500 pixels to 500 pixels, just for the sake of like running it fast. I copied the same. Let me do this. Actually, I'm copying exactly the same prompt from the online version, and I'm gonna just say generate. Okay, so it should be running now. And when you run it local, you usually see this kind of command prompt window, which is showing that, hey, I'm loading the local model, and then it's running the GPU now. So you can see that, GPU is being used, and then it's generating the images on the right side. And again, instead of one, I'm creating 4 images now. And it should be done soon. So it's like 60%, 65%. So the first one, we tried an image. This is actually pretty interesting. The first one, we tried an image. The second one, we just kind of like draw things. And we are not giving any details about materiality, like materials, about reflections, about rendering style. Actually, you can do all of that. Okay. So this is kind of like an endless, way of exploring things. So here, what I can say is, keep the prompt the same. I'm going to say building blocks, bird eye view, iridescent materials, let's say high gloss reflections. So it's going to look from the top and it's going to try to see some reflections. It's a weird thing to do, but it's not my problem. It's AI, so I'll just see what it's going to do. Okay, so I just put the information about the material and high gloss reflections, and even, let's say, professional lighting. So you can actually put any terminology about like photography or rendering engines. For instance, you can say Unreal, or you can relate anything to, let's say, a game, like a computer game that you're playing. If you're interested in that, you can say, hey, make this in this style, whatever, the Cyberpunk 2077, which I like a lot, as a visual style. So you can kind of like say that, or you can use a painting style. Like I can go back to this and say Mondrian painting, right? So it's going to do, of course, it's going to create these, let's say, solid color blocks potentially, and maybe add some lines and so on and so forth. So whatever visually in life, these models are how those are trained. So this model is trained using 2 billion images, right? So those images include a lot of information from designers, painters, visual arts, architecture, whatever you can think of. And then you try to kind of like see if you can, steer the tool towards that. So here, of course, it's kind of like being super confused, challenging, because usually for reflections, you don't look from top to the things, you look at an angle, right? So with a camera. So because it's bird's eye view, it's trying to do its best, but all this like things about iridescent materials and reflections is trying to do that. So what I can do is, instead of this, the good practice is actually, I would suggest you to, copy and paste your prompt somewhere. This is a good practice for understanding why something happened first and maybe didn't happen next, or what really worked good for you. Okay. So what I want to try is actually, I can take this and make fully architectural, right? So one problem is, if you're trying to make it architecture, like abstract, and use the word architecture, then actually you can't be super abstract, right? So you have to, like, you should refrain from saying buildings and architecture if you want to make something really abstract. If you want to make something like more realistic, sure. Let's try this. So I'm going to use a couple of ideas from here. So I'm going to use this earthy colors and high gloss reflections, okay? But at the beginning, I'm going to say 3D architectural. This is going to be really confusing. rendering. Okay, so why is going to be, because what I'm giving is essentially a top, like a very 2D. It doesn't have any 3D info in it, right? But I'm saying 3D architectural rendering. So I'm pushing our, AI to interpret this is in a 3D manner. So I'm like, okay, let me go challenge you and see what you're going to do. And then it's going to try to put those high gloss reflections and then earthy colors. So it's going to be like brownish, as we see. And some bright yellows, whites, and so on and so forth. Maybe dirty whites. Okay. Cool. This is running well. While this is happening, I'm going to copy and paste this to the online version here, just to test it. Like on it's the same thing, but essentially depending on how much of the resources are available, it kind of like changed the results. Okay, so it got way more realistic because this. Okay, so you have a T table here and some mirrors on the wall. See, like I didn't expect that. So that's the interpretation of 3D. This is more like a top view and so on and so forth. So the nice thing now is, okay, this is interesting, but not really what I'm trying to do. So I can kind of go back to my scribble, and then I can keep drawing, right? So I can start building some maybe relationships between parts. This you can also hand sketch it and upload it, right? So it's the same thing, image to image, or here we can use scribble, or if you have a pad that you can draw onto, or a touch screen, I think this may work better. So I'm going to do something as ugly as this one again. And maybe you can give some suggestions for 3D, like if I start doing this, it's almost giving it a little bit of like this axon, feeling to it. Okay.
Started getting errors. Probably.
Oh, okay. If you're getting error, just refresh the page.
Okay.
Yeah, refresh the page. So what you need to do is, if you try a lot and if it is not happening, and if it keeps going, what you need to do is this. You go back here. Yeah, I think it's giving errors because like connection error now. So probably we are all on it together now, and it's just choking. Yeah, now it's not even connecting. Yeah, I wasn't sure about the how much resources this would have. So, but it looks like somebody's running this locally in very minimal amount of resources, GPU. So that's why it's not loading. Are you getting the same thing when you try to refresh? Can I?
Yes.
Okay, I can hear you. Okay.
It's the same.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 3D architecture. Again, high gloss, triadic colors. So you can put some like color schemas if you want. I'm going to run this again. I know you can't do it at your end currently, but just for the sake of demonstration, I'll just keep running this. Yeah, I think we took the web page down. I think that's us. Oh my God, okay. Okay, so as you see, that kind of like 3D suggestion started giving me more defined results. But again, because I'm using the word architecture, it's trying to be very literal with it and trying to create these architectural, messes. So instead of that, I can say, again, back to 2D abstracts composition, okay? And let's say we remove the reflections and, you know, just use similar color schema. So if I do that now, let's take a screenshot of this. Actually, I should have, let me save. It started now, so I can save it. I'm going to show one more thing. We looked into one of the edge detection tools, and then we looked into interactive scribbling, okay, which is that. And the next thing I want to show is depth, so which is very interesting in my mind. So you can use that for some, again, like explorational ideas. So before it crashed, did anybody manage to get anything?
I did.
Okay, students?
Yeah, I got some stuff. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, which means that like this being free, one of the own, like nothing is, well, there are free resources, but nothing is as easily accessible as this one. So you just like, this is just a website, you just go, I mean, somebody is just, you know, donating their old GPU for this to run online, so which is a big thing, okay? So as we try to the abstract composition and creative colors, it's still, you know, the colors are there, but things are more abstract, so it's not as architectural as you see. Okay, great. So one thing I would like to do is, let's get one of these images. Let's get maybe this one. So I'm going to save this one. And I'm going to say one more. Let's say this one, which is a little confusing. The background is a little fuzzy. And I'm going to save my awesome creation too. I don't know when I will be able to do such a drawing again. So this time, where I'm going to go to is, let me check the online version again. Yeah, it's that. Good job, guys. We made it. I'm going to go to, imagine going to depth on the online version. So what I'm going to do is, again, in my ControlNET window, I'm going to go to depth, and I'm going to select under the models, which says depth in the file name. So I pick that. And then I keep the, you know, 2D abstract composition, creative colors, same prompt. Everything is the same. So I just changed the model from scribbling, just drawing, which was like free interpretation, to some sort of like depth model. So I'm like, okay, take this thing and try to see it as a 3D object. So it's going to, let's see what it's going to do. Okay, it's loading now. Okay, so here is an interesting discussion. As human beings, when we see axonometric-like drawings, we tend to think like, oh, it's 3D representation of something. We see 3D stuff there. But now the computer is looking at it, and it's not really, like if you look at what's being generated, it's just seeing like the lines as a certain depth, and then the bright as another like another level of depth. So it's not seeing this kind of like gradual, you know, kind of like depth going in the Z direction. Which is to say, the way we see images, like in a representational way here, is not the same with what the computer sees. So the way for the computer to extract that was, if you remember the examples we showed in the beginning, it was more kind of like gradual, and it was trying to see what is closer to you, what is kind of like further away from you, and so on and so forth. So for that to work better, we can go back to the images we just generated. Okay, and I'm going to use this one, remember, which I said It's a little confusing at the background, but it has a feeling of depth beyond the lines because it's shaded. It has a shade that's kind of like changing from the closest, looking point to the further away point. So, and what I'm going to do is just to run it a little faster. I'm going to explain what sampling steps is later. Just bear with me, and I'm going to reduce the number of images that I'm generating from 4 to 2. So because I want this to happen really fast. Okay, so as you see, it's already kind of like running. It's going to pull 2 images and 1 single depth map. Okay, so now it generated 2 images, and look at this depth map. So now it's seeing, oh, the orange area is closest to me, the white. The darker blacks are the blackest black is the furthest away, and then anything in between is kind of like it gets closer to you when it's brighter, and it gets kind of like darker when it's far away from you. So is there an even better way to deal with this? And the answer is yes, actually. So this is what we can try. So let's see, I have this AI generated image again, which is this guy. Right? So it's a building. And in 3D, you can understand what is closer, what is kind of like further away, and so on and so forth. So I can put that instead here, okay? And I'm still at depth, right? So I'm studying depth. And I can change, it says 3D abstraction, composition, trade across. So I'm going to change, let's keep the prompt the same, just for the sake of, again, comparing what happens. So now, because the source images I gave, first was a line, that line has no depth for the computer, so it couldn't understand. Then I gave some images that I generated with machine learning or AI. So they were also like not that clear about the depth or the perspective, but this is suggesting a very clear sort of depth, right? Like a perspective, and actually it's extracting it really well, right? So it's saying, okay, this is a building, it has a canopy which is closer to me. The ground is the closest to me, which is the white bottom. If you hold the camera, the closest would be, like right under your foot. And then the canopy, and then the right side of the building, the right block, and the left side of the building is at the back and so on. So it's doing actually pretty good job pulling those depths, and plus creating these abstract images. So let's save these. So I'm going to save this, which is a depth map. You don't need the depth map for anything now, but it's kind of like the information if you're doing any sort of like professional rendering, or if you're doing anything with depth. Okay, so the building looks a little abstract because we have the abstract composition there, right? So now I can say 3D rendering of a building on an exotic island and palm trees behind in the background, palm trees in the background. And I want it to be a cinematic rendering, cinematic, you can say that. And also I can say depth of field. So which is, the camera, the further away things will be blurred. So this is the scenario. So I should see a building, palm trees at the back. It should be an exotic island, and this and that, and that. There needs to be some sort of like blurry background. And then I said cinematic, and let's see what it does with that. Okay, so they look interesting. This is good, but the problem is they are very ugly, and I didn't design these. Okay, so that's the biggest problem for me. The problem with AI is you have some sort of intention, let's say, but it does so much for you. You are rendered like useless. For instance, in this case, I'm rendered useless. Like I didn't do anything. I just typed a couple of things and something emerged, and I can say, hey, like I did something amazing. No, I didn't. It's just, I just put the prompts, hey, I did something. It looks a little interesting, a little pretty bad, actually, if you ask me. But the goal here is, okay, what I learned, what did I learn here, and how can I use it for my design? So this is the critical point. So I'm going to go into it, but how are we doing with this? Let's check out. Oh, mine loaded. Is it working at your end, the online version?
No, but I'm going to try again.
Okay.
Yes, okay. it's loading.
Great. Okay. So let me do the the main spiel as you try that, which is I learned a couple of tools. So I learned about Scribble. I learned about image uploading and prompting, which is image to image, and then I learned about depth maps. So the question is, what am I trying to do? Okay, I'm trying to do some sort of two-dimensional or 2.5D or 3D composition with some shapes. Okay, so that's the question. That's what I'm trying to do. Oh, I see a screenshot. So let me open this. Okay, yeah, this is like super architectural too. So like you can, do you want to jump here, or do you want to kind of like, do you want to really go like house plan, or do you want to do this first? So let me show that. Let's open another tab. I'm going to show you an example. Give me 1 second. And in the meantime, please try to open the page if it loads. Okay, great. I'm just loading these examples at my end. I'm going to share in a second. Okay, here we go. Okay. Great. Okay. So, do you want that, as I said, or do you want to kind of like start with stuff like this? So there are kind of like, okay, so where in the design process are you at now? So that's the question, right? So maybe you need to reach a point which is like something like this, right? So it looks it's architectural, you know the spaces, and it generates this and that. But are you ready to jump there yet, or are you still kind of like exploring some ideas in, for the relationship of these spaces? So there are a couple of different suggestions here, right, which are all generated by using this base image, and I'm going to explain why I'm using this permanently. And if you look at here, so maybe the closest thing to that is this. It's just kind of like drawing the edges and trying to make a sense of what can be, like closer, what can be like, is there a depth here? Is it 2.5D? Is it 2D? But this one has like way more clear suggestions saying that, oh, okay, there are gradients, there are shadows, it's rendering as if this is like a top view of a building cluster. This one is taking them as like floor plans, the source image, and then this one is being like super painterly, right? So it's like, oh, let me keep ideas like in flux, and maybe I come up with something else. And one nice thing happening in these two are, like, you would see that it's not happening anywhere else. This like white area on the bottom right corner of the image, which is interpreted in like totally empty, or like it just draw like a little room here, is interpreted in a very different way in these ones. Like, so it's doing something totally different in that area, and maybe that can bring back some ideas for you to go back and change your sketch. So this was my sketch to generate all these images. So one way, we're going to share these, but you can see how I generated them, right? So I used the starting drawing here, and then I use abstract 2D composition render. And also here you can see what algorithm I was using. So this was using Canny, right? So the first one. And as you see, it would draw the edges first. Like it will just detect the edges, nothing about the shades. If you go to the next one, this is segmentation. Remember, segmentation was differentiating objects, right? Which is a more abstract thing because I'm challenging here. We are not really trying to do segmentation between people, trees, cars, which are really easy to understand. But here we're just giving some like fuzzy shapes to the algorithm and expecting it to segment things. And it's doing a quite good job. See, like here, the magenta is one object in its algorithm in the way it's that does the segmentation, and cyan is another one, right? So it's seeing some weird stuff in between, but then it's treating the white as gray. So this is the the schematic outcome from the segmentation part, but then it applies, again, using here the abstract to the composition render thing here. And then it's creating these more abstract results. This is interesting, friends. If you look at here, like one piece is kind of like split from the other two, which are kind of like split internally and so on and so forth. So by playing these, you can discover many different ways to deal with that. So here I'm using one of my favorites, depth, because again, here I said, I'm going to do gradients. So maybe it's kind of like thinks that it's a ramp or something, right, in 3D, because if I, that's how you could see the ramps with the interaction of light. And then here, what I'm saying is still abstract 2D composition. So still, I'm not saying building, I'm not saying building, I'm not saying architectural, because if I say them, I'm going to show what happens. If you type them, the problem is, which is a problem in my mind, it just becomes architectural immediately. And I'm not at that stage. I am not done yet deciding what is where, which one is the living quarter, where I have the, the garden, what the, kitchen looks like, more or less the sizes, right? So I'm not there yet. So here you're going to see that it's saying 3D architectural layout plan diagram. I just said it and it was like, bam, here you go. You want architecture, so you can give this thing and it creates your architecture. The problem is, again, like I didn't do anything. Like here, I have no control over which room is what, and is it really architectural? Not really. Did I design this? No. Those are kind of problems. But if I explore here, for instance, if I say, hey, this is going to be my kitchen and this is going to be my living quarters, and I'm going to have a transition space in between, and I'm going to put a fireplace there. Okay, then you're a designer, right? And then, well, if I'm doing that, then I need maybe more, the space needs to be like wider. Let's say this arm needs to be wider than the kitchen arm, kind of like decision, right? So that's how you explore and make your decision. So in my mind, these abstract images are super valuable for that. The quick other example that I can show is this is one of like a simple design that I did in my fourth year in architecture. So we were asked to design something in 1 week. This is like a vacation, lake house. So you spend 1 week and just design this and give it. So what's happening is there's a deck, there's a meeting room, actually this was a fireplace, this is a pool, sauna, and blah blah blah, and then like very small rooms to kind of like stay and so on and so forth, right? So this is a drawing like that. So you can start with something like that, and again, if you say 3D architectural layout plan diagram, it's like it's ruining my design, but anyway, it's doing something architectural. Okay, so the point is your images is a part of your intention. The prompts are the other part of your intention. So, and then this is almost the same thing with what I did. So here I said 3D architectural layout plan diagram, and I'm using the HED, which is the second algorithm. So it's edge detection. So it detects the edges and it says, okay, this guy wants an architectural drawing, and it's already an architectural drawing. So let me put some, trees and furniture here and there, right? So that's actually what it's doing. So the top one instead was using, let's see, the depth model, which is again giving a slightly different results. So this is to say, what you give is what you get, but you have to be very kind of intentional in what you're trying to get. Okay, very clear with what you're trying to get. Okay, the question is, okay, these are cool. How can I study my own design? Couple of things that you can do. One is using your own sketches, right? So you can literally upload your sketches to this tool. The other one is you can actually make new drawings. You can make it on the interface, but maybe that's going to be hard. So you can make it in Photoshop or any sort of other drawing tool. I'm gonna show it in Photoshop because it's easy for me. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create this landscape canvas, and then I'm going to get the rectangle tool. And this is exactly how I studied this, because let's say if you're thinking in plan, you can start drawing. Okay, I'm gonna draw something like this. So this is gonna be space A, whatever that is. I'm gonna fill it with. I'm I'm going to fill it with black. Computer is a little slow because I'm sharing a huge screen, so that's all okay. And I can change that color to, let's say, some gray color instead. Yeah, let's do that. And then I can keep, that's exactly how I did the other drawing. So let's say, I think there is another space which is in relation to this one, which is connecting these two spaces. And let's say there's another space here, which is connected to that, but it's like more vertical kind of space. And I'm going to make it a different, like darker gray. You can change, I mean, you can go crazy, right? So nobody is saying that I can't use colors. You can. I wouldn't in this plan because I'm thinking more like a spatial term. So I don't want to kind of like confuse it with any sort of color. What you can do is you can also go to your layers. So for this layer in the middle, I'm going to double click it in Photoshop if it responds. I'm a little scared that it's not going to. Okay. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to just say gradients left to right. So I can make this from left to right. Okay. This 0 degrees. And actually, just to fit in with that, because it ends up in black, I'm going to take this purple guy, which I don't like the color anyway. So I'm going to make black. So okay, this is already suggesting some sort of, you know, this composition, you know, that I'm trying to kind of come up with. And I can, if I want to have a courtyard, let's say courtyard-ish, semi-open courtyard, I can do this. Sorry, I had like weird stroke there. So I can change the colors again. No, I don't want any stroke, but for fill, I want it brighter gray, and then whatnot, right? So you could keep going like forever like this. I can just do, oh, and then I'm done. Let's see. So this is like, you know, a way to study this, and nobody's, you know, refraining you from drawing on top of this by hand or dropping a picture there, right? So you can, I mean, you can do it is endless. So what I can do is actually this, like I can bring this in my former, my previous drawing. I think my GPU is crying now. So let me save this before it crashes. File, save as. Something is not right. Photoshop is not happy. Okay, I think you got the point. Because it's not responding, and I'm really like, I don't want this to crash. Yeah, Photoshop is gone. Bye, Photoshop. So what I can do is I can cheat, and I can take a I can take a screenshot of what I did. Come on. Yes, okay, it worked, kind of. So let's try that again. New. Okay. So we got that. Save this. I'm gonna save that. Then did it work again? Let me ask once more. Did it start running?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Trying to generate something right now for me.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm gonna save this. Sorry for the Photoshop glitch. It's really dying now. Cool. Dana, is there anything that you want to add before I keep going with this?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if you have the mural up,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to show the hand sketch to image.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, so I can.
I'm following you.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So I just wanted to show this example because I didn't know what would happen. I got a really old sketch, conceptual plan, pencil on tracing paper, and put it into ControlNET, Canny, with the text prompt, mid-century modern building plan view Mondrian. And it's kind of in conflict because I'm using words like building and plan, and so it's like recognizes those, but Mondrian is like an artist style, so I didn't know what would happen. But the idea was like, oh, could I take this black and white, really conceptual sketch and potentially create some sort of rendering to it? And so I think this this image output was pretty interesting because it stays close to the original lines, but it's interpreting like this pencil stroke as steps. That's how I read it, but it's still staying pretty abstract. So I think it could be quite interesting to put in some sketches when you're still in the abstract, like conceptual stage of designing, and seeing what you get. And then like the second example, I was wondering if it would start to create 3D forms. And so you're getting more shadows and it's almost turning into like a perspective view. So just playing around with the tools and understanding how you can use them to your advantage, I think would be a great exercise.
That's great. Actually, I like the Mondrian example because just I happen to talk about it, right? So if you keep going, Dana, the third one, it's interesting that it's like in the third example, it's completing the lines, right? Just extending the lines like a Mondrian painting because you have it in the prompt.
Yeah. So yeah, one thing to note is these prompts are, some of these are the same, but with each model, you're getting a completely different output image. So maybe some models, have a bias towards artistic styles, or we don't really know what's happening behind the scenes, but
the segmentation is interesting. If I can speak to that, for instance, it's seeing the middle bulk as a mess in the middle, and then all these like other like the sketch extensions that Dana had as like trees is green in the segmentation, which is like this model here. And then it's trying to do it Mondrian still, right? So I'm trying to put that like red rectangle there because it's Mondrian, and then the tree is a little bit, I can't really make, rectangles out of these. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you want to show the triangle version too, which is the
Sure, yeah. And then moving from like more realistic text to abstract text. So this example is showing potentially like exploring different compositions and forms. So I'm introducing the word triangle into this image, and so you're starting to get, I don't know why it came up with this vibrant colors, but it, I wasn't super specific with the text, but it does have these like triangle forms, and it's starting to like morph the sketch lines around those triangles, which could spark some ideas about programming or form making and composition.
These are great. Thank you, Dana. So, Benay or Shebnam, any questions? Any questions or any creations that we can see? Because I'm interested to see what people did.
So perhaps first we may ask to the students what they could do. If you want to share it, anyone of you? So let's
Let me
see
stop
what
this
you
for a
have done
second.
so far.
I got something kind of cool. Not really
So
sure
you may
how I
share
could,
it.
do I just share my screen?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just I took this like plan I had, and the lighter yellows areas is like an actual like kind of enclosed building space, and the orange ones are supposed to be more like decks. Obviously the AI can't really tell that, but that's what my intention was, and I kind of tried to get something that looked a bit like a model, and I thought it turned out kind of nice.
Mhm.
It's got like the divisions between the spaces and stuff.
So one quick question for you. That darker and brighter, there's an intention of like separating those by like height or type, right? That's what your intention is, because you said one is deck, one is inside.
Yeah.
So which like algorithm or tab can you use to kind of like test that idea?
I don't know.
Yeah, you can use depth, right? Because yeah, what you used Canny in this one, which is if you look at the tabs at the top, so Canny, hue, and HED will always do what you're seeing, those, so it's going to extract those lines. But if you use the depth one, which is the second one from the right,
Yeah.
it's going to think that, okay, the orange is different than yellow, so the depth should be different. So it's going to start treating it in a different way. So you can just switch to the depth tab, which is no, go down. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, you go there, you drop the image there now. I think this is a great demonstration for what I was trying to explain too. Yeah, you can like unshare, drop the same image, try that, drop the same image, use the same
I
prompt.
just don't want to show all my files on the.
No, that's fine. I understand. Totally understandable. So anybody else?
Like to share?
I
Come
can
on.
share.
It's
can
your
share.
turn.
Okay, I share.
Let's have some fun.
So in second year, first years, we're working on a bathhouse project. The students are working on a bathhouse project. So what I tried is I found this clay rendering online.
Mhm.
I wrote abstract drawing, chalk, interior of a bathhouse, concrete walls, people swimming, people sitting, people bathing. This is what it got me.
And no people, there are no people there.
People there. But if I may
Yes.
hack a little bit your workshop,
Yes.
because
Yes.
Onur did another workshop in fall semester when Shebnem invited him using a different AI tool, which is called Runway ML. Am I sharing it? Okay, still sharing it.
Yes.
I also, when ControlNET crashed, I
Hmm.
started testing the same thing with the Runway ML.
Okay.
And I still have some like 939 generations left to try. I just want to show these two. So it's maybe a little bit more advanced than ControlNET, but there's a subscription fee, I believe, right? So I started with the same image. There's a tool, image to image tool. I wrote the same prompt, but you can also choose what medium and which mood or something. Like, wait, it's too slow. Okay. So I chose abstract and then medium chalk right now. But I tried different styles on media. I don't know. I'm scrolling up. So the first one was, I think the style I chose cyberpunk, and it gave this. And then I added people. The other one I chose, I believe.
So are your students allowed to bring cyberpunk type of renderings to the final?
Sure. I just want to scroll up. So I just kept with different styles.
Yeah.
Added a few words to the prompt. And I think it's here that I started adding people to the prompt.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to see people. I'm gonna, sorry, I'm scrolling up.
Yeah, these abstract ones are pretty cool. And to me, this is for the class again. If you're relying on AI fully and just letting it do everything, I would never know if that's your intention. So that's why I'm asking Benai, would you let people do that? And I don't. If you're very constant, if you're aware what you're doing, so I think that would work for me. But I would rather see how you kind of like organize and bring that architecture to life with your intention, right? So if I'm not seeing that, and if it's being rendered in ABCD style in AI, it doesn't mean much for me. I just want to kind of like drop that. But yeah, these are so cool, Benai.
So scrolling up, and the further I hit generate, it went further away from the initial
Yeah.
rendering, which was this one.
Yeah. Anybody else? Did we get the depth experiment with the
Trying,
first?
but it's not really recognizing it like I wanted
Okay,
to.
that's fine. It's totally fine because again, like, you know, it may or may not do what you're intending to. Yes. Okay.
It's
So-
not recognizing like this space here, like that deck. It doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, it's drawing the depth of what it rendered on the right side instead of seeing the depth you're giving it. Because also it's reading it like, you know, yours is like very black and white. It's like binary, right? So like level 1 and level 2. It's usually getting some sort of like, you know, intermediary kind of like in betweens. I would suggest, for instance, using a little bit abstract terms with this one. Like stay on the abstract before you jump to, you know, like you don't need a grass and blah blah. Like just work the. What I would do is, you know, because you have separation between the rooms, I would kind of like explore that relationship first. Like if this room is wide enough, if it can, you know, if I can hold one of the rooms and push it out a little bit, so kind of thing. So I think it would be super interesting because, as I said, you know, it can render it anyway, and just like rendering it doesn't mean much to me. So my Photoshop is a little doing better. So the left one is the one that I draw. The one on the right is what I was showing, right? So this is kind of like intentional, right? So I'm kind of like trying to be maybe spatially create some compositions here. So I'm gonna do that too. Like I'm just gonna add one more here in the background and just make it. Dana, how are you doing with the time? We're going over time a little bit, but
Good, I'm good.
okay, yeah. Let me know if you need to jump out. So we can go to grayscale. I'm gonna get a really bright gray here. So, and again, the other thing is, you know, because I use the image on the right side, I could come back here and say, hey, like I could actually, I don't want this kind of relationship. I want like, let's say that kind of relationship. So I could do that in Photoshop and say, oh, okay, like that looks more like it, right? So like whatever, maybe I'm trying to kind of like connect two things. And then just to even push it further, right? So, and to rely on myself instead of, you know, relying too much on AI, because I want to be the designer of this thing. So I can kind of like, let me make a group from this and just drop that group to here. So what I did is I grabbed everything on the left side and just kind of dropped it to the composition here, the right side. I'm going to put it at the back. Things are getting a little crazy, but I like it. And I'm going to move these just like that. And just scale it to, imagine, I mean, this being more intentional, right? So I'm kind of like playing with this a little bit, but I think you got the idea. So here I'm going to say, instead of normal, now I can, so these are the blending modes in Photoshop. If you go on top of the layers here, so if I pull this, in the layers, you have these blending modes here, right? So if you extend that, if you open this, so you can, I can make it, hey, make it dark, make some of the layers affect the other ones, like darken it, multiply them, you know, color burn, which is grayscale now, so it's burning with brightness now. Darker colors, lighten, right? So this can even be like, if you have an underlying pattern, like a plan layout, you can use it to maybe describe the like different layers, right? So I'm going to use something like this and just like pull this here, play with it a little bit. Okay, I'm going to save this. Save it again. The Photoshop again, not too happy. Go on. Okay. Save a copy, please do. Thank you. So let's save this. Gonna make this the last example. I'm gonna go to my stable diffusion window. Go to my sketches, which are here. Come on. I don't have it. Yeah, Photoshop just lagging. I think because I'm kind of like killing my GPU. It's the memory of the GPU is full. So what you need to do is for that, like I have to kill stable diffusion here and restart it, which I don't want to do. So I'm just gonna use what I have. Or let's do it. Let's take that risk and see what happens. So this all the processes running at the back. You know, I've been creating all these things, so it kind of like killed my GPU probably. So I stopped that. I need to go back to my local stable diffusion. Again, I'm going to show the installation in a video. Go to this guy, just run it. Hope that it's going to work. Anybody else in the meantime? Anybody else got anything interesting? Nothing? Really? Come on, one more person. I know you have some images. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to look like anything.
I think, Emily, are you going to share?
Okay.
Just mute yourself. There's a microphone.
Oh, okay. This is like a rendering I had done last semester, and I just threw it in there to see if it would make it any better. But it's kind of interesting to see how it reads boathouse as like a luxury thing instead of a rustic feel. But yeah.
Interesting. Would you use that image that came out as is? Are you happy with that? Good.
Just not. Yeah. I
It's-
figured I like the background. I like the way it rendered the
Yeah.
water and the landscape.
Yes. But again, you know, I think like what you have on the left is pretty important because it's a spatial depiction of your intention about the space. You are designing the space, right? Whereas this, the one on the right is like putting lots of like texture. It's like a bad render, putting too much materiality without giving much information, understanding about the spatial qualities. So I agree with you. I wouldn't use that either.
I tried it with the clay rendering.
Yeah.
But I used it on Canny instead of the depth. So then it also came out very weird.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, as I said, and I think like this is it's definitely not a final rendering tool, this thing. It's more, I think it's better suited for abstract explorations or some explorations that look real, but they are a little kitschy, you know, they don't really work that well. So cool. Anybody else?
I played with the depth mode some more, and I think I'm getting closer to what I want to get out of the AI.
Okay,
I don't know, would you like me to share? Or?
of course, yes. Because believe me, when you get the thing that you want, you're gonna want something else.
So I went into the advanced options and I saw this one that says is depth image. So it used what I input as the depth image, and it kind of got a bit closer to getting the depths accurately.
Yeah.
Also introduced this interesting green tile pattern thing that I find kind of cool.
Okay, that's good. Great. In the meantime, I finally got the image that I wanted to save. So it's here. So let's play with that. And then call it a day. So if I share my screen again. Actually, let me do this, share. Okay, you can see the UI, right? The user interface. Okay, so I'm gonna drop this image here, right? Which is what I painted in Photoshop or diagrammed, whatever you want to say. Okay, so there's one single thing. Again, this local installation will be online, hopefully, I don't know, maybe today or tomorrow. This sampling sample steps is diffusion models work in a way that it starts with a blurry image and it starts removing the blur or noise from the image, very noisy image to less noisy image, and then lesser noisy image, and so on. And diffusion means, you know, it's almost like carving out the thing that you want to see. So when you say like, oh, building here on the, you know, on an exotic island with palm trees behind and so on. So what it does is it kind of like starts carving the noise out until it starts seeing those objects. And if you increase the sampling steps, you're going to get much better and better images. So it's going to be forcing itself to get really this high quality, you know, like super, more literal, you know, thing that you're trying to get. But of course, it means more GPU time. So it's going to kind of like slow down your creation. So for this one, what I'm going to say is, architectural layout of a convention center, let's say something like that. So I'm using something really abstract to make something well-defined. And I'm going to, let's say, reduce the sampling steps to 10. So instead of making it diffuse more, I'm making it diffuse less. And I'm going to create 2 images with this one. And I'm using Canny as my, you know, it's just going to find the edges. So it's not going to do anything with the shades. Now we know. So if I generate that, my image size is 512 by 512. Is there anyone in the room who has like NVIDIA GPUs, any gaming laptops? Yes, no? 2 people. Okay, so they are the lucky ones. So this is like, as you see, it's making something really crude, and it's really not related to my base image that much, right? So I better go back and make the image with something similar to what I have, which is, let's say, 800 wide and 550, you know, high, let's say. So that's not going to change anything in the quality of the diffusion. Like diffusion will give me again something crude like this one because I'm keeping the diffusion at 10 only. The default that you see online is 20, so I'm going to increase it to 20 now. So this is, so you see, it's not diffused yet. The noise is still there. There's like a lot of noise in the image. So what I'm doing is I increase the sampling steps to 20, which in turn should give me much crisper image because it's going to run more to remove the noise. And because I'm asking a convention center, of course, this thing is trying to draw a really big, you know, settlement, right? So interesting, it's getting something 3D. So then, and you know, you see the resemblance between the image I have and the image here. And then I can make the, let's say, make it 40, the sampling steps, which is the twice the amount that I've been using since the beginning of this workshop. So it's supposed to diffuse the image way more and more, remove a lot more noise from the image, so to get something more crisp. Okay. Okay. So, and as you see, it's taking time, right? So my GPUs, like my fans are ramping up here, just, you know, trying to kind of like get that stuff done. Okay, see, so it's adding more details as a convention center. Okay, so for this one, because I have gradients, so I think the depth would be still one of the most interesting ones. So I would still use depth and switch my model to depth here. Actually, I didn't enable the ControlNET, so those were coming from stable diffusion. But anyway, it was doing the same thing. So I'm going to drop this to 20 and say, let's keep the architectural plan layout. So I'll keep that. So it's going to do something architectural, just to kind of wrap this up and understand it again. And if you realize it takes a while for it to start running once I change the model, because the first thing it does is, I don't know if you can see here, but so this was the previous run. So it was loading the depth model because I switched. And all of these models are 5.5 gigabytes on my computer. So it's loading all that 5 gigs to the, to the RAM, and so that's why it's taking so much time to start. And then once it starts, it's on the GPU, so it's kind of like happening faster. Some technical background for you. I don't know why it's hung up. I don't know if I poked something. Yeah, I think I disturbed it a little bit. Go. Okay. So yeah, it's it's kind of like giving it something more like a plan, and this convention. So don't use convention center as a prompt. It looks very bad. Okay. So all right. Any questions? No questions? Super quiet.
Any comments or anything that you would like to say, ask?
Jen has a question.
So I was kind of wondering about the pose section, because one thing we've really been having trouble with for our bathhouse project is finding like good entourage. Like, have you experimented with using it to create like people doing certain activities, specifically ones that you could like use in a different render,
Dana, you want to take this one?
Sure, yeah.
Let's-
So I've just done initial tests with pose, and I think the model currently doesn't, like the one I showed before, the woman had 3 legs. So
Dana, I'm following you on Mural. If you wanna.
okay.
Oh, but I
Are we-
need to. Okay, sorry. I thought my screen was shared. You can share if you want.
Okay. Let me get the pose section.
Do you want me to share? I can share.
I can share. It's okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did this one experiment, and you can see here it creates this diagrammatic pose, and also the imagery. You can see the hands really resolved, and there's 3 legs. But I do think that you can, like from what I've seen online, it's definitely doable. I think you need to be very specific with your text, and maybe the resolution of the input image could also help get more of what you want. But I think if with this current model, I think there are other models coming out that can resolve hands and other human features better. But right now it might be nice if you hide the hands and the feet and get, could Photoshop it in. But it's worth a shot, I think, if you want a specific wardrobe or pose. I think it's worth a shot.
Yeah, just maybe it's good to add that all these models are changing almost overnight now, so everything is experimental. Once you learn one of the things, it changes the next day. The best way to understand how it works is just experimenting with it. So the pose thing is interesting. You can drop any image and re-render it as like another person, whatever you want to get. But again, the question is, I mean, if you have that pose already, maybe you're losing time because it's already there, and then you're trying to like, if there's no clear reason for re-rendering it, maybe just using what you have might be better. But yeah, the online version of ControlNet, you know, you can, that pose is really simple. You just drag and drop the image and then it works. What I want to close up with is maybe one last time, let me share this. Here. Okay, you can see this, right? So I think this is where I was trying to kind of like get to, because this is, you know, really close to, of course, what I generated. But once I start looking into maybe this kind of stuff, it starts, you know, it starts doing some different things for me. I start seeing different sorts of relationships between parts. Maybe it's like, you know, having this translucent, you know, like, or transparent, like sketch, you know, paper, and then just having the initial paper and just putting, you know, that's how you draw. That's how we used to draw, right? In the architectural school, so you keep drawing on top of it. So this is more like maybe doing that for me. And here I was saying like abstract architectural art composition. So I'm kind of like not giving it too much chance to, you know, immediately become architectural, but at the same time, you know, trying to push it, remain on the art side. And once you get that, again, you know, if you're working on this locally, you can kind of like push it to create a lot of images for you. So you can, I don't know, generate 1,000 images while you're having dinner, and then come back to it, and then it will do that for you. That's pretty much that. So what we can do is, again, that local installation hopefully should be ready in a day or two. We can share some of the examples that we showed as a PDF, so you can read the prompts, see the images, and see what they yield, so you can kind of like play with that. Oh, one last thing before I forget. There is really one nice website that you can use, right? So like, just to understand the scope of what you can use as prompts, let's say about the context, about the about, let's say, the lighting, the cameras, you know, whatever you're trying to do. So the way to do that is, I suggest you to go to this website, which I'm going to share. I'm trying to share my screen. Here it comes. Okay, so you go to promptmania.com, and it has these, you know, Midjourney Dream Studio Stable Diffusion. We have been using Stable Diffusion. You go there, and then you can select the base image. So our exploration was more like it's like a sphere kind. It was like a more abstract, right? And once you select that image, we're not doing a portrait, so I'm not picking the beautiful face. So you can start adding details, saying, okay, oh, art medium, I want something, okay, pastel arts, and then maybe a little bit of origami. Kirigami is too dense, maybe like modular one. Yes, I'm gonna pick that. As you see, as I click them, they are going up. I don't know where they're going yet. So for camera, I can use lenses, for instance. I know, for instance, one thing that I can use for aerial view, we use like bird's eye. Depth of field, see, it gets kind of like, you know, blurry at the back, so I'm gonna get the depth of field. And then for color, we can pick like for instance, chromatic palettes. You can use, we use triadic, actually. This is what I used at some points. So we can use split complementary colors. Okay, so I'm just kind of like picking. For geometry, I can pick shapes, and I can say, I want to have a decagon shape there. And materials, we can check reflection for reflection. we can make it shimmer, right? So shimmering. Okay, so you see at the top, like all that stuff that I clicked is it's kind of like pasted on the top of the screen that way. So I can go back to ControlNET, and I can go back to my ControlNET here, the local one. And in the meantime, actually, I made it generate like 9 of those things. See, these are like super architectural. Okay, so here I used abstract architectural diagram art composition. Let me take a print screen for that. All right, done. Yeah, these are, I like these. Okay, so for this one, I'm gonna keep exactly the same prompt, but say comma and just put the rest of the stuff that I just copied and pasted. Can I do that, please? Let me go back here. Here, copy. Actually, you can just use this. Copy the clipboard, copied. Wonderful. I go back and here I paste. And then I'm going to rerun again. Instead of creating 9 images, I'm going to create 5 images. So what it should do is, this is really biased towards making a line, you know, actually a kind of like gradient image, but with like line edges, like perimeters. They should keep that, but it's trying to add ideas from like origami, depth of fields, split complementary colors, a little bit shimmering and so on. So it's going to be a little confused, but still interesting.
Your input image right now.
Yeah, I just realized I pasted my screen there. So I did a print screen, so it's using. So this is our source image on the left side, if you see it. So I got a screenshot, and then I got stable diffusion to run on screenshot. So that was the most creative thing I did today, I guess. Okay, great. So I got like 5. You got the idea. I'm not running this again, right? So this is a very nice interpretation of a screenshot. So I'm gonna leave you with that. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much.
Yay!
Thank you.
Great. Will this be useful for you?
I think so. I think so.
Great.
And perhaps as a kind of a final remark from me, it was really so useful and so helpful for us to develop a very first understanding of how we may really introduce AI to our very early stages of design. But as you were always saying, Onur, it's not something to be taken literally. It's not something to be used, directly to apply to any stage of design. It has a huge potential to create, very many explorations and help us to perhaps think through different possibilities. But it should be always, just approached as kind of a sketchy tool, and which help us to perhaps still make further interpretation of what it is in terms of its representational capacities too. So thank you so much, sharing this. I'm sure Ben I will be adding more.
I mean, we're at a different stage in our studio. We're almost we have two weeks left to the deadline. So it's not the early stages of design for us, but I think this introduction, I mean, at least my students didn't know that a world like this existed at all. Like you began your presentation saying you probably saw Midjourney, DALL-E, all of that stuff, but I don't think they ever saw that. So this is their first
Poison.
introduction to this. They may not be able to use it at the initial conceptual stages, but maybe in the future, in the next years, they can use it. But this can also be an introduction for the second years to explore other tools that are also available, because they work pretty much with the same logic.
Yeah. You know what? Can I make a suggestion for your studio? Because I was there for the review, Hello, everyone. I remember some faces. I don't know if you remember me, but I'm still alive to begin with. And so what I would suggest for you, your studio, Benai, is use this tool to make some abstract representations or descriptions of your design idea. Instead of trying to render it with materials, with people, with grass, with this and that, what I would do is, because one question that we kept asking during your review, and I asked it too, was like, what is your design principle? Like, what kind of design thinking, like pattern are you following as you're putting the rooms together, as you're kind of stacking the floors, you know, on top of each other? So that was my biggest question. So see the images behind me? I think that's like very kind of like descriptive of what I'm trying to say. This is like, okay, this is like, I'm describing data there, it's like data changing, but it becomes like curly, but before that, it's kind of like very kind of like fragmented and, you know, rectilinear and so on and so forth. So I can explain what I'm trying to do with this. I can say, okay, this is sort of this visual language that I'm trying to express. And yeah, my suggestion is really, if you have time, don't waste time using this tool to re-render things, to make them real, to texture them. I wouldn't suggest that. I would really take your drawings, take your renderings, take the thing that you do in Rhino 3D and make it even more abstract, like make it like a clay render. Try to explain why, you know, spaces are coming together in one way or another, and so on and so forth. So that would be my suggestion for the second year studio, which is exactly what the first years are going to do. So,
Yeah,
and this tool is good for that. So the other thing, there are other tools, but I think this tool is pretty good for like that kind of exploration. The other thing might become a little like stressful because it's not there yet. This tool is not there to. There are tools which can do that. This is not it. All right.
So, any other questions, comments?
Great. So I would like to thank Dana again for joining the the newer generation of her alma mater. So thanks, Dana, for taking the time. This was super cool. And thanks for everybody who attended.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. See you. Bye.